Everything we know is inspired from music. In one way or another, something you have stemmed from generations of culture. The last 60 years has been revolutionary for the music industry, and our society has evolved around it. This video is a story throughout the decades, how the culture of music has changed everything.
The 1960s was a decade of immense cultural change.
Immense cultural challenges like the Vietnam War, race segregation, discrimination were all at its peak during the 60s, and still echoing through today's doors.
Singers Bob Dylan and Joan Baez being the forefront of this movement, their protest songs were the soundtracks of sexual revolution and anti-war marches. The first major fashion movement of the 60s was in Great Britain, following the rise of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
The Beatles were a huge hit, spawning a new type of sound, but also creating what was called today as Beatlemania. An almost cult-like following of fans going crazy over this band, and it did not rest for the entirety of the 1960s.
Their 1963 single From Me to You began an unbroken record in the UK. While many white artists were going back, African-American artists continued to develop the sound of R&B. James Brown was at the forefront of this, releasing songs like Papa's Got a New Bag and I Feel Good.
His popularity sparked a fire within the African-American community, fighting segregation and racism all over the world. People like James Brown, Sam Cooke, and Nina Simone all using their music to fight back. It was a true revolution.
The 1960s also saw an emergence in feminist music, which challenged the traditional gender roles and advocated for women's rights. Musicians such as Joan Baez and Janis Joplin, they used their music to speak out against sexism and discrimination, and they inspired a generation of young women to challenge the status quo. The 1970s is remembered by the insurgence of punk and disco, two musical forms that ended up defining the decade. The two genres brought on a clash of cultures, both of them thriving in their own way. Disco was born out of the club culture of New York City and quickly spread across the entirety of the United States. Disco music was characterized by its danceable beats and synthesized sounds. As technology advanced, the genre was popularized by artists such as Donna Summer, the Bee Gees,
and many more that is too long for me to read. In the rock world, there were pioneers, catching the eyes of everyone. Queen with their upcoming fame, and Elvis Presley fighting the music industry with his style, dance, and singing abilities. They were marvels, not to take away from everyone else, because
there was a new subgenre of music, punk rock. It emerged as a reaction to the commercialization of the music industry. Bands like the Sex Pistols, The Clash, some legendary band names were made during this time, such as AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Deep Purple, Queen, Black Sabbath, Aerosmith. Basically all of the most popular bands that we know and now today came from the 1970s. Life back in the 80s was very simple. There was no internet, no blogs, no social media, and definitely no cell phones, only big massive bricks. The 1980s was known as the era of pop culture, when fashion and music started to evolve. I wanted to start up with one of the most important advancements in music, MTV. It was the first network to exclusively show music videos. The first music video to be played was by the Buggles, which was Video Killed the Radio Star, as music would forever change, and the focus would shift from music and lyrics to fashion and theatrics. The innovative concept created a whole new breed of pop star. Some of the superstars to emerge were Madonna, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, and Prince. They're still the standard that pop stars seek to reach these days. If you're a fan of gangster rap, then you must be familiar with Straight Outta Compton, a rap song that took the rap industry by storm. It had a significant influence on youngsters, really vulgar and violent language. Hip-hop music originally had a hard time breaking into the mainstream media due to MTV's reluctance to show African-American artists. After much criticism, the network started to embrace black musicians, whose videos were amongst the most popular out of all of the artists on the platform. The new wave genre began in the 1970s, but was very popular in the 1980s, which also birthed the fashion sense of the time. Oh my god, the fashion sense. Neon colors, neon clothes, neon shoes, neon hair, neon everything. It was highly embraced by the dance culture of the time and the disco that was still taking off since the 1970s, and also invigorating the nightlife, as people would go out to clubs in their stripy colored clothes and they would dance till the night is up. The musical era of the 1990s was filled with a variety of pop, rap, and alternative music artists. Alternative rock music and its subgenres dominated culture. The less commercialized music resonated more with Generation X, known for its nihilistic tones and cynical sensibilities. The The most popular band of the time was Nirvana. As with many other music trends, fashion followed through with trends like flannels, long hair, oversized clothing, and a generally disheveled appearance. EDM, electronic dance music. Music was characterized by having a really fast tempo, between 120 and 150 beats per minute. Drum machines, synthesizers, and other electronic instruments. The genre has its roots in African American music, as the beats are replicated from the post-disco world. Some of the most popular EDM artists of the time were The Chemical Brothers, The Crystal Method, Fatboy Slim, Daft Punk, The Prodigy, and Happy Mondays. The late 1990s saw an introduction of highly commercialized and overproduced bubblegum pop. Groups and singers like the Spice Girls and the Backstreet Boys all saw early success during the 90s. The genre really gained momentum, dominating early 2000s music scene, which there was a heavy influx of bubblegum pop artists. The genre was characterized by its use of auto-tune, a new AI-based tool to help the singers vocalize their voice to make it sound better with the music. Instead of going with their plain raw vocals, the music scene depended a lot less on talent and a lot more on fixing it in post. With every era in music history, there was a new kind of technology and helped the way people listened to music. This time, it was the iPod. In 2001, Apple released its first ever MP3 player, the iPod, which went mainstream. This device alone helped digital music become a heck of a lot more popular, way more than CDs, as the accessibility of it was just as simple as clicking a button and finding a song. But this would also be the reason why CDs started to have a decline. Apple made you pay for music, it wasn't free, and not everyone had spare money willing to spend on digital things, which subsequently didn't exist. Those people who didn't have money resorted to something that we know very well today: piracy. In the early 2000s, the music industry was shocked when the internet users started sharing copyrighted music from an app called Napster. Software such as Napster made it very easy for people with digital copies of recorded music to share these digital copies with other users. The music industry were not slow to react to those, suing Napster company and Apple, reinventing their platform called iTunes. iTunes tried to solve this issue by having a few songs that you could listen to for free, but having still most of the music be paid only. But it was justifiable, as music artists needed to find a way to get paid, and with digital stuff on the rise, they didn't want to just have their stuff out there for free. Soon after its creation, the owner of Napster, 18-year-old Sean Fannin, came under heavy legal fire from the giants in the music industry. They were suing to shut down the site and citing a copyright infringement. Ooh, you heard that word? Copyright, right? Copyright was a law to enforce rules on resharing and repurposing used media, or original media. If it isn't remixed or repurposed in a way that doesn't differentiate itself from the original, such as music remixes, it could be seen as a copyright infringement, meaning the original content owner can sue you and take all earnings you make from whatever use you have given reasonable standards. But you're allowed to use them if you do it in a different way. As long as there's enough changes in the song, you're free to do whatever you want with it, as long as you credit the owner. In the early 2000s, the music scene was dominated by boy bands and girl groups like Spice Girls and the Backstreet Boys. These groups were often criticized for their lack of musical talent and for being manufactured by record labels. Pop sensations Britney Spears and NSYNC, the Backstreet Boys, were battling rappers Eminem and Nelly for chart superiority. During the 2000s, there was also a new surge. New platforms were made to share and distribute music on. One of these apps being YouTube. Being launched in 2006, YouTube had this way with people where you could just search up your favorite artist's name, find their music, and just listen to it. Along with that, Spotify also got released. Spotify being the next big competitor in the music industry to iTunes. Ultimately, the 2000s was a massive step forward in technology and being able to be found more easily on the internet. The 2010s has got to be the most diverse change in music history ever, as we move from the Y2K era to the new modern sound that we know today. Over the course of the last decade, the music industry went through transformation like never before. Startups tore down old hierarchies, fresh artists gained a whole new degree of power over their music, technology companies reinventing decades of industry strategy. The rise of streaming services and social media only helped it more, and this internet sensational music also led to a whole bunch of new subcultures of music, like EDM. EDM having a resurgence now, being more popular than ever. The last time we heard of it was in the 1990s. And the resurgence of hip-hop and the emergence of new genres like vaporwave and lo-fi. These developments gave rise to new countercultures that challenged mainstream values and norms. As a new generation creeps into frame, a new genre of music is born, giving artists who may not be all that talented rocket to success. An example of that being Rebecca Black with her song Friday broke records. For how fast it blew up, people would have thought that it was such a good song. The song itself was, well, something about it made everyone play it so much. This genre is something that I would like to call meme music. Something that's in the meme culture, something that's to joke about, but yet it still benefits the original creator as it's being watched everywhere. This made social media go crazy, making everyone think that they can make songs, like YouTubers, TV producers. Songs like Gangnam Style played into this silly side of music, earning significant fame from it. Like 2 billion views? I think it's 2 billion views from just a guy dancing around like this going, Oppa Gangnam Style. The Harlem Shake, popularized by millions, where on the beat drop, everyone just went crazy and it was ridiculous, creating an immense amount of hype on the internet, especially on YouTube, as this was going to be the turning point that changed everything. Businesses started seeing the power and the influence that social media had, like YouTube. We'll get back to that in the next decade, because the world was changing. Hundreds of artists emerged from the ocean of competitors. Billie Eilish, The Weeknd, Drake, Kanye West, Nicki Minaj, Childish Gambino, and so many more I can't even bear the list. There is hundreds! Their fame, all from online clicks, becoming so incredibly popular, and their numbers only going up, they became titans of the music industry, through their modern styles of hip-hop, pop, R&B, rap, and rock. Now we're at the present day, the 2020s. There's not much yet that I can tell you since we're already 3 years into this, but still, so many things are evolving, but not to mistake for some of the music that was made so far. It was a drastic change for how artists made music during the beginning. The rise of COVID, artists had to do everything from home. They had to adapt. They had to make music from their houses. This is a hot topic about AI, as it's risen to the point where people have managed to synthesize artists' vocals and make completely original songs using their voice. It broke out as a trend started by this person called Ghostwriter, who released an AI song called Heart on My Sleeve, using the voice of Drake and The Weeknd, two very influential and popular artists of the time. What could this mean for artists and those who have died? Who just unbury them from the grave and start using their voices for their own personal gain? Who knows? And where does copyright lead into this? A word again. But others with copyright issues, Ed Sheeran is a legend in pop and rock culture, an international superstar who has recently been hit with a copyright lawsuit. Ed Sheeran has been in the charts over and over again over the years, so for him to be charged with stealing someone's music was surprising to say at least. But as Ed said himself, you can only get caught out if you've done something wrong, and I've not done something wrong. I'm not lying here. I use chords that are very common to use, and they sound like lots of songs. Chords aren't copyright. This is true. They are the fundamentals of what make a song. But if there's enough similarity to prove that there was an infringement, what could this do to Ed Sheeran and the music industry as a whole? Would false copyright claims be plaguing everyone? Maybe people who don't even make music could go, Drake stole my song, and I want $1 million. The 2020s has brought a whole lot of business to the music industry. Some good, some bad, where audiences believe the random artists are plants to make money. These industry plants are made to be the face of the company, so if something goes wrong, the business people in the back can just jump right out, but the people at the face of it will have their whole life ruined. A good example of this is a young artist called Jumex. Hooked on the sound of rap and hip-hop, tried to be original by screaming and making his voice lower than what it is, having repetitive lyrics that aren't even written by him, and honestly boring songs, as he seemed to only have one popular song called Loner. His songs were about getting high, doing drugs, being depressed, and flexing money, which were easily the most basic lyrics of all time, as that was a trend about 5 years ago. It was a very obvious attempt of trying to get famous fast. His songs didn't have that much success, as it was proven later on that he was an industry plant. Unlike Jukes though, there have been genuinely amazing artists to come out of this decade, like Doja Cat, being a pop star with her hit song Say So, the glimmering disco pop jam released as a single at the top of the year and made her a staple of this decade so far. Another artist by the name of Jack Harlow, following into the rap scene, exploded with his singles Through the Night and What's Poppin', skyrocketing him to be a sensation. Both these artists are just the tip of the iceberg, and probably not the best examples, but I want to talk about some more artists that I think have very promising careers. Don Toliver, The Kid Laroi, Steve Lacy, and many more. One thing that's different to how they blew up. TikTok was released in 2019, but only really became popular recently. As it used to be known as Musical.ly, it was a silly thing that you do like dancing and voiceovers for, maybe little silly videos. It was becoming a tool to promote songs and music. They would hop onto trends, or they would do something involving the song, therefore in turn promoting the song more and more and more. As people recognize the song, they would hear it on like Spotify or on YouTube, and they would go, oh, I know this song, I like this song, and they would share it and share it. It would add on to views and views and views. It's crazy. If you take some time to look back at how music was even just a few decades ago, let alone the 60s, we can see the massive amount of change that the world has been through, and how our culture has been shaped around the music industry. Thank you for watching, and this is my video essay.